Hello and welcome to Time Capsule. This is our first episode. We had an idea maybe a week or two ago, and we thought we would use it to talk about something in pop culture that we thought was important, that's happening now, that we thought was a big story, and kind of analyze, dissect it, and just give it a good chat. And today we're here with myself, Brian Edwards. I'm going to be hosting this one, and I'm here with Rob. Hello, Rob.
Ahoy hoy, hello.
So today for our
Homer,
first
hello.
for our first episode, we thought we'd dive into what spurred the whole idea of doing the time capsule, and that would be the finale of the Colbert Report. After 9 years on the air, the Colbert Report is ended, and I don't know what's going to happen to that Stephen guy. I hear maybe he might do something. We'll talk about that maybe a little bit later. But to start off, I thought I would talk about just what we thought of when the show first started, way back when in 2005. And just to cover your own thoughts, or three favorite moments. When it first started, 2005, we didn't get it here in Canada right away. We got it, I think, a few months or a few weeks into it. I think it
I
was
think it was
October.
weeks. I think it was less than a month because I was insanely ravenous to watch it. And it was at the very beginning of like geo blocking of videos and stuff, so I couldn't
Yeah,
get onto the Comedy Central website.
yeah. So you were 15.
Yeah, yeah. You like to bring that up.
It was the bulk of your teen years. That just blows my mind.
Hold on, let's put a fraction on this. So 9 out of 24 years
Wow.
divided by, so that's
Wow.
3/8 of my life. Is that what it works out to? There you go.
Sounds good to me.
Okay.
So yeah, I was not 15 at the time, and I still remember watching that first show. Again, I'd heard about it, I knew of it. We couldn't watch it yet, but I remember that first one. The Word was all about Canada, and of course, being Canadian, just love anything that's about Canada that airs in the States. We just lap it up. Doesn't matter if you insult us or not. Simpsons does it all the time.
Even if it's
Colbert
Wheels
loves
Ontario.
Wheels, Ontario. So I immediately loved it. I told my friend, who was a big Daily Show friend, but he's living in France at the time. He couldn't watch it, all about it, and he was excited to watch it when he could. I think I saved a few episodes for him when he got back, and it was an immediate hit for me, and I imagine for yourself too.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely I remember seeing. Actually, I'll go back a bit. I got into the Daily Show around I want to say 2003. My dad got me into it, which I'm incredibly thankful for. And right before the 2004 election cycle, which was big for that show. And I
Yeah.
remember seeing, well, not only loving Stephen Colbert as a correspondent, I actually have the Daily Show. I think their only DVDs are the Indecision 2004, which especially collects the Republican National Convention where Stephen Colbert kind
Oh,
of ran
yes.
wild. And I remember seeing there were those sketches for a fake spin-off of the Colbert Report, which I think had kind of he's a conservative blowhard idea in there. It had something about bears. Um, it
Man.
had him. I think it was a lot more closer to the Bill O'Reilly specific parody of cutting off his mic, and
Yeah.
and I remember it was announced, and at least for me, I mean I was on message boards and stuff, and it seemed like people were excited. I didn't really know anybody in real life who was following the Daily Show and Colbert, and
Again, you
it
were a
seemed,
child.
yeah, it seemed promising. I was in high school. People were caring about those Backstreet Boys and the NSYNCs or something. Yeah. No, that was even outdated then. But as I understand it, it was more controversial for you.
When it come to the start of it?
Yeah. When it was
Um,
announced?
no, I'm thinking when he announced his next gig.
Ah,
The
I
start of the
completely.
show.
Oh, I completely misinterpreted our pre-show talk.
No,
Okay,
no.
but how did you react then to kind of the announcement of the show at
Well, I was
least?
a big fan of The Daily Show. I think I had been since, I can't even remember. I want to say it was just before the 2004 election. I think I started hardcore watching it in 2003 or so. And I was liked Steven enough, and I thought it was a weird idea that I didn't know it would sustain itself for a 4-day-a-week show for X number of years. I didn't think it was a bad idea. I just didn't know how it could sustain itself as a show. And even in those early weeks, I think you mentioned before that the show tonally was a little bit different. He was much more the Bill O'Reilly caricature that he would kind of soften that in the next few weeks or months and really change the overall. But yeah, I don't know. But I was like, oh, I'll check it out. And as soon as it came out, I was like, oh, okay, this is brilliant. And it didn't really change that much. When you look back at those early clips, I mean, it looks slightly different. It's not high def. The look of the graphics is a little bit different. The character edge is a little softer and a little more expansive. But I mean, the segments are there. Better Know It District, Cheating Death, and obviously we'll develop a lot more segments. And the interviewees, the reactions are a little bit different because they don't know the show and they didn't know what he's going for. I mean, part of it was the gotcha Daily Show edition of it. That changed as it become more famous. It kind of makes the show a little trickier in some ways. Getting politicians to come on became more difficult.
Yeah, I mean,
that different, which kind of amazes me, considering how topical it has to be.
well, I wouldn't necessarily 100% agree. I mean, it kind of depends on what specifics you're talking about haven't changed. I spent the morning today rewatching the best of DVD, which was made in 2007. And it was really apparent going from the other night before the night of the finale, as much as we kept talking about, like, all right, well, there are only so many episodes left. I'm going to actually watch them every night because I'd kind of fallen off. And maybe we can get into that later about kind of falling off the series. But I binged November and December all on Thursday night. And going straight from that to watching the first 2 years of the show was a big whiplash. One thing you're right on about, and the genius of the show was that the segments were there, at least within the first year, I would say, because it's also presented in chronological order, so you can really follow, or for the most part, so you can really follow, like, 2005, early 2006, late 2006, by the time you got to Guitar-mageddon, which I think really blew up what Colbert, the character, could do and where it could go.
Yeah.
And then into 2007, where you started seeing it was Colbert as we know him now. The stuff from 2005, early 2006, it was very close to a Bill O'Reilly parody, and with that dash of Stone Phillips, who shows up a few times for gravitas-offs.
Is Stone his first guest?
He was. They had a gravitas-off on the first night. It's not included on the DVD. It's the second one that is, for some reason. And you can see Colbert kind of sinking into the character. The one thing that really struck me is that the show was much more stunt-driven in those early years. And that's where a lot, like, they came into their own in terms of the political satire, but it was all obviously the stunts that got them a lot of press. So on this DVD, let me see, I'll read it off really quick. The green screen challenge, Stephen Jr., his adopted eagle, the meta free-for-all with Sean Penn, Cooking with Feminists with Jane Fonda, as well as the follow-up interview where she keeps on trying to kiss him. Messing with Wikipedia.
Oh man, yeah. What's it? Elephants?
Elephants. Elephants are tripling their population in the last 6 months. I don't know if you know that, but it's a big blow to the environmentalists. And Better Know District was a lot more of an event, and because I guess it seemed realistic that he was trying to interview everybody in Congress. There was an actual pushback. The ice cream. Like, this was all in the first few years, and
but that's still his thing. I mean, that was his thing: the self-aggrandizing, publicity-driven, event-driven, trying to get his name on anything that you could fan vote a name on too.
Oh yeah, the bridge was in there as well.
Bridge is huge. Was it the arm of the space station or some part of the space station?
Some sort of node. It ended up being a treadmill.
The treadmill, the Colbert, stuff like that. I mean, that felt like always part of the show. Like, and the stuff like Who's Honoring Me Now. I mean, that's part and parcel with the tone of the show, I think, from the beginning.
But I think there's a difference there between Who's Honoring Me Now is like a small recurring thing, so it's like Cheating Death. Yeah. I meant the one-time stunts, guest star driven, like the finale musical, actually, in a way. But yeah, I remember when the show was more, and it's not necessarily that it was that it was the reason why I maybe think that the earlier years were a little better than the last few years. Or but I remember it was more of a I think like the rally to restore fear and or sanity was the last time this happened, but like there was a lead up to an event.
Mhm.
He was hyping it
Yeah.
every night. There were complications along the way. That's actually something that I also thought of when I was going through this DVD was the Daily Show had like some recurring jokes and stuff, but it was Colbert really introduced the idea of kind of like callbacks
Yeah.
and
Characters.
character like the Formula 401,
Mhm.
all these stunts, the things that kept on popping up, sweetness, like these jokes that almost didn't make sense unless you'd watched it every time.
Yeah.
But it really served into the Colbert Nation fan base, and
Yeah. That
yeah,
builds up that fan base when you have recurring jokes like that fans of the show know, where you can wear a shirt that says truthiness, and you laugh at any reference of Doritos because you remember his presidential campaign sponsored by Doritos.
well, in the finale, the one joke that I'm kind of shocked got in there was in the final cheating death where he kills Death.
Yeah.
And there's a few jokes back to back to back that kind of reference old stuff, but the one that I was surprised by, because I remember finding it hilarious at the time, but I can't remember what the joke was. But him shooting the audience member and the blood spurting out of the leg,
Yeah.
that was something that I remember specifically. It must have been like 2007, 2008, because I think it was right before I had seen a taping for the first time.
Mhm.
But that was like a thing that popped up like 3 times in a month, and for some
Well,
reason it was the craziest thing to
talk
me.
about that was like going to a tape. I never got to see a taping of a scene
That
that
is
like
a
that.
shame.
I wanted to, but just never worked out timing wise.
So my Colbert bona fides are that I've gone to 2 tapings, one in 2008 and one in I want to say 2010. Um, the 2008 one was pretty much the day the recession began.
Hmm.
Because I was in line at noon to get in at 6.
Yeah.
I was looking kind of stuff up on my phone, and
You could do that
I
back then?
think so. I think they had Wi-Fi, or maybe I don't know. Maybe there was a newspaper. I don't know. I was following the
My
news,
phone
however we
paper.
did in the sunny days of 2008, and so that's what it kind of struck, like that sticks out in my mind. It was September 2008. It was whatever day that the one bank that declared bankruptcy
Mhm.
that unleashed that whole chain of dominoes. Um, Colbert, they really, I think both times I went, they were running a bit late on the day, and so the warm up really had to kind of keep up the energy. They're very big. They were very big on tell the audience members that like the host lives off your energy. You have to be
Yeah.
like, even if you're, and this is what gets me about people who always claim like there's canned laughter on sitcoms or nightly shows, but it's they pump you up and they tell you that it's important, and it's a combination of you're there and you're excited and you're trying a little bit harder than usual, but
Mhm.
everybody else is and you kind of get swept up in it. And that was a big feeling. I've gone to Daily Show, I've gone to a Letterman, a Fallon monologue rehearsal. Like they all tell you it's important to be loud to maybe
Yeah.
laugh a little more than you would find natural, but you kind of get swept up in it. But Colbert, they hammered it, and but you can tell as soon as he came out, he was running around the studio. He had jokes for like commercial breaks that I found out were recurring ones, but they were always hilarious. Where like anytime his hair was touched up in between commercials, he would like the hair lady would kind of reach in to like do
Yeah.
something on his head, and he would reach out and like stroke her hair, a loving embrace. I once got a question answered.
Nice.
Um, it was during the heyday of stuff white people like,
Yep.
and I think I bought stuff white people like the book from the old um, what was it? It was like HMV for us, but it was in Times Square.
Oh,
Uh,
like Barnes and Noble type place.
more like very
Video.
much media focused, but like a big superstore. It had like 4 stories. It got shut down and replaced by the Disney store. But bought the book from there, read it a little bit. There's an entry on the Daily Show, Colbert. I asked him what he thought about being listed in the book. He hadn't heard about it.
Oh.
And it was kind of weird because I think he just kind of like did the first thing that came to his mind, and I'm not even sure whether he was agreeing or disagreeing. But he's like, all right, hands up, anyone in the audience, who here is a colored person? Or probably not colored person, but who here is black? And there was like, I don't think there were many people in the audience. There were a couple of crew members. And then people kind of laughed. I don't think any of us were sure what we were laughing at. And then he turned to me and he said, "That book can go to hell." And I still try to think about it to this day about what he meant by that, what he meant by that joke. But and then on the way out, he winked at me because I was like right by. I was seated right on the side of the stairwell where he exited every night, and he winked at me. And
that's awesome.
And then the other thing is that same night in 2008, I was part of one of 3 screenings, I think, for the holiday special, which is also a DVD back there. Yeah. I recognized from like certain parts where like my audience was clearly excited that we are the laugh track on the DVD, but not on the TV version. Which there are some small changes. Yeah.
Look at you.
Anyway, so yeah, that was a big long rant. When I went back in 2010, it was I think that was when I realized that some of the jokes were the same, but they were still delightful. I mean, Colbert that's what he does. He kind of stresses a joke to its maximum and then keeps making.
Uh-oh. Oh, looks like we've lost Rob for a second. I'm sure he'll rejoin us. In the meantime, I'm just going to go over. I was going to ask him as well what the favorite moments, just off the top of my head from this show. There's so many you can go over, but I think top of my head, one of the first ones, and I think it's the first time I ever saw him crack on the air, and it's my favorite thing is to watch Stephen Colbert crack. Oh, there's Rob.
Yeah, that's unfortunate that my browser apparently crashed in the middle of Solo Bolo, but
I was just talking about, and you're going to go into this in a second, just top of my head, the 3 favorite moments from the history of the show.
Well, I think people have heard enough from me for a little while. You go first.
That's good. So I was talking about, I think it was the first time, at least that I remember him breaking on air on the Colbert Report specifically, and that was rather than Daily Show. And it was the first Valentine's show. It was like February 9th, 2006.
I think I know this one.
And he's talking about celebrity super couples. You got your Brangelina, your Bennifer, Philliam H. Muffman, and I lost it. I must have watched that 10 times that night alone. I'm trying to find the clip now. I can only find it on the American.
I can't find it. Try to find
nowhere but there, and of course it's not playable anywhere outside the state, so I can never watch it. But I will never forget that. I laughed so hard every time I've seen either William H. Macy or Felicity Huffman, anything that immediately comes to my mind.
And there's split difference Zeppelin adventures.
Yeah, if I ever met them, I would have to mention it just because it was one of the funniest things I'd seen up to that point, and it's still one of my favorite Colbert memories. And just the idea of seeing Stephen Colbert breaking endlessly delights me. There's a great 13-minute clip on YouTube of various times he's broken, and it's not one of them, which just infuriated me. But so many great moments, both from Daily Show and Colbert, where he's breaking, and it's so great seeing the character break, even more than Jon Stewart breaking. Isn't that unusual? I mean, he's not Jimmy Fallon, but he breaks, but it's not unusual because he's not playing a character. Stephen Colbert is super serious, right? So seeing him laugh just delights. So I still remember that. It was 2006, for God's sake, and I still never forget that.
What's great is actually that though the video doesn't seem to exist, when you look it up on, say, YouTube, there are all these legit, sincere, one true fandom matchup videos of Felicity Huffman and William H. Macy with. And the fans have adopted that as their actual couple name.
It's so fantastic. It's such a stupid name that obviously, especially if you see it for the first time, you just that's so absurd.
I got that into. I was big on Electronic Gaming Monthly back around this time.
Yeah.
And they would do a thing on their message boards where they would ask for was basically like a mini letter section, but with like one-line answers, and like one of them was like, "What movie do you want to see adapted into a video game?" And I said, "The Splendiferous Adventures, Zeppelin Adventures of Philly H. Muffman," and it got in. It got printed.
That's awesome. Well, the top of my head, there's so many, but I think another big one, and it's more because I love the writer, and I love that Colbert. I think that's when I read that he had at least one author on a week, which is ridiculous when you look at other late night shows.
Mm-hmm.
The amount of focus he put on writers, and I really hope that's something he keeps on his new gig, is when he did his Colbert Book Club with a big O in Colbert to mimic Oprah's book club.
Was this around when Oprah left her show?
I think she stopped doing...
Oh, I'm thinking of Conan. Sorry, go ahead.
He started a book club, and he did the entire show dedicated to... The first one was Great Gatsby, and the second one was Catcher in the Rye. Salinger had just passed away, and Colbert was going to talk about every book except Catcher in the Rye, because he didn't think much of it. Didn't think it was that good. And he knocked Salinger for never having done his show. How big a celebrity could you be if you don't do red carpets, you don't do press, you don't come on talk shows? So he's dismissing him. But he had, literary historians and other writers talk about the impact of Salinger. And the fact that he did a whole show on J.D. Salinger in, 2012, 2013, just seems ridiculous to me, but I love it. I love that he loved books so much. Mm-hmm. He spent an entire show talking about J.D. Salinger of all things.
Apparently, his Colbert bump was it mostly applied to books, until the very end. Books were. I read some article that made a passing reference that I assume, just based on where I read it, which I also can't remember, was actually based in fact, but said the book publishing industry is going to miss the instant high five of the Colbert bump.
I really hope he keeps that. I mean, it's such a rare thing in a late night show. I keep maligning late night shows in my head, thinking it's just interviewing celebrities of the month, flavors of the month, talking about their upcoming movie, pre-interviewed, pre-screened questions. Nothing
I'm sure.
Surprising.
I'm sure, and we can get into it maybe towards the end of where Colbert is going in the future. But I'm sure that might be a legitimate response to the Jimmy Fallon Celebrity Fun Time Variety Hour is a little bit more. I mean, it sounds, and I'm not even insulting Jimmy Fallon. I like the show, but it might kind of a more cultured, sophisticated. Let's sit down and have discussions. Anyway.
My third favorite, and it's more of a recent one, and it's a little bit of a sad one. His tribute to his mom when she passed away. It was not really in character. It wasn't really out of character. It was kind of quasi out of character. And I think he opened the show with it, and it was a beautiful 5 to 10 minute segment. It had the nice beautiful picture, and just talk about how important she was, how much it meant to him, raising him and his brothers and sisters. And I think there's a little anecdote that she taught her kids how to stage fall in the kitchen. And it's such a beautiful little, especially for a kid who would go into showbiz. I can imagine how much that meant to him, and just the seriousness of it. I think I watched it 2 or 3 times over the course of a week. I just kept it on my TiVo and watched it because I go, this is really good. I have to watch it again. Watched it a couple more times. It's obviously such a personal thing for him, but it was such a beautiful, beautiful tribute for her. I loved it. And then my kind of bonus one, because it's not really the Colbert Report.
Mm-hmm.
It's not on the show.
Okay.
It's not really in character, but it is the Correspondence Dinner.
Right.
When he went on that, and I'm sure everyone's watched that, and I watched the video on YouTube, and I cannot believe the balls it took to stand in that room and say those things to those people's faces directly. I mean, people have listed as the #1 breakout thing, Colbert history, one of the biggest things in politics and political commentary and all that in the last 10 years, 20 years, and absolutely, I was floored at the time. I'm still floored by it. Incredible.
Well, I think there's kind of been some mixed narratives about how much of that did he feel in the moment. For me, I'm as much as it was insane that in retrospect this character got within 5 feet of the president and was allowed to just talk for 20 minutes. Uninterrupted. Nobody was allowed to interrupt, and apparently the booker had never seen the Colbert Report.
That's insane.
The other half of it is that Stephen Colbert stays so much the person stays so into it doesn't seem like he's flapped at all.
No.
I don't know if that's the correct use of flap. Like, he's unflappable, but was
Yep.
he being flapped in the moment? And
Sure, the grammar police will let us know.
absolutely. And so I remember reading a lot about uh, he at least said like, well, it in the room it felt like there was laughter. It felt like a normal response. I was not.
Yeah.
It did not seem off to me, and I think that's kind of the line I took for years, where I mean, it was a little revolutionary. It wasn't. I just reread it before this podcast, actually, because it's in the back of his book, and like I feel like maybe some punches might have been pulled. Like, they could have, like, I mean, there's a reason they didn't have Jon Stewart on, because I feel like Jon Stewart, they by that time had a reputation where, like, he probably would not have, been afraid to really kind of like hit out at Bush. But I recently read Alison Silverman, the original head writer, did a long dictated piece in Vulture, talking about prepping for that, and then Colbert actually, to her, did seem a little frazzled. Like, she just could tell based on her experience with him writing the show for a year at that point, and he actually like excised some jokes on the fly, which she doesn't reveal, but implies were stronger jokes. It was still revolutionary. It was still great. It's just that's the part that interests me, just as a performer, considering how much that was the world's hardest performance to pull off, and he pulled it off so perfectly, even though he may or may not have, been
gone as far as he wanted.
But I was going to say knew how much trouble he was getting into.
I wonder, like, what the moment after was. Like, get out of the room, go backstage. How does he decompress after that? What does he say?
Oh my god! 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 Oh my god!
Like, did that actually happen? And just I remember the reaction it had from other people, like not specifically about like Jon Stewart. I remember having a big reaction to it. And
he said something like, "We are all so fucking proud of him," like the next day or something.
Oh, it was just incredible. I remember just endless talking about it at work with people who I don't think watch Daily Show or Colbert Report, but just talking about, hey, look what Stephen Colbert did, and everyone was talking. It was huge.
Yeah.
So what about yourself? What are your, like, off the top of your head, maybe your...
Well, it's really hard for me.
Characters, bits.
And I feel like this will probably naturally transition into my thoughts on how I feel like the show kind of became a little same old in the very late years. But a lot of it lived in kind of the coloring of the margins for me. Like, there's the basic skeleton of his character, and then you can have the events or just the news of the day or whatever that builds off of that. But it was the moments that always struck out at me were like the little left-hand turns at like a little bit of surreal humor or just like a perfect joke that you wouldn't naturally think of just by thinking, all right, just say what a conservative pundit would say. And that was the genius of the Colbert character and the show, was that it always had, the natural joke of like, this is what a conservative pundit would say, but it was also laid on top of with genuine jokes and left turns and weird just rantings of a crazy person. And
it was one of the things, they build the character and they kept the character pretty consistent. Even though it wouldn't be the natural conservative reaction or a comedian's reaction, Colbert, the character, had an expected reaction. They would go with that more than often than not, which I liked.
Yeah, like one of the main things of that to me was like sweetness, where that weird, it's such a running joke, the running joke of just like he's in love with his gun, like literally, and then he has like vacations with his gun. Then like it turned into like Sweetness is talking to him and and like telling him like, oh, I should do what to the people? Oh, Sweetness, what? And those are the parts that resonate with me. If I had to kind of narrow it down to specific bits, I would say Guitarmageddon was big for me at the time. That was the first. I don't know. It was the first time that it felt like, I think because the payoff of a big running joke compared to like The Bridge or something
Yeah.
actually happened
Landed.
in studio with a
Yeah.
big finale
Yeah.
to the storyline and all the December showing up. I post on Matt's wall today that Apples in Stereo, Steven, Steven, he's a handsome man. His name is Steven. That song was great. Peter Frampton showing up, the four-armed guitar, everything of that. Another big moment was maybe technically not the Colbert Report, but the Daily Show Colbert Live
Yeah.
2008 election night special, where I can't remember if they did it again for 2012, but they were in the same studio. I think they did do it for 2012, but 2012 was a little disappointing for some reason. Like it just
Well, two different elections and very different vibes for both of them.
yeah. But I on one hand I thought that the 2008 version was funnier, but on the other hand, the thing that makes it stick out in my mind to me is when the results came in. And it was a big deal in itself that Jon Stewart announced
Hmm.
live, like to many people, to me, he was
He was the one who told you.
he was breaking the news that
Yeah.
Barack Obama had been elected, and it was the end of the Bush years. That moment immediately after where Colbert he was really trying to straddle the line between how he really felt and his character. But he silently, while the studio audience was cheering for a minute straight, he silently was like checking results,
Being despondent.
being despondent. Like he wiped away he like lifted up his glass and wiped away what seemed like a real tear, but he
Yeah.
kind of like tried to play it off very subtly so that you could maybe take it as in character a tear of whoa, the end
What's
of the
happened to America?
yeah, and then after that, he had like a little breakdown while the rest of the cast went crazy. Didn't I think Wyatt Cenac and Larry Wilmore came out to take over the Daily Show and Colbert Report because black people were in charge of America now.
Yeah, I'll never forget Larry Wilmore measuring the desk. That's all he did, was just measure John's desk.
And then Wyatt in the Colbert studio, basically 2 blocks away, going like, "It's a big C for Cenac."
That's right, I forgot about that.
And then probably his presidential bid
Mm-hmm.
or his super PAC. Like I really like the twisty stories. I really like the storylines that developed.
Yeah.
And that's why I kind of got disappointed when I feel like in the last few years, I probably fell off watching every single night in like 2011 or 12,
Mm-hmm.
where I feel like not just that the events, the one-time events fell by the wayside, but it became both Colbert doing the regular news of the day and those kind of the coloring in the margins. Like another thing was on the DVD, the Meta Free for All with Sean Penn.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't the actual puns weren't that funny, or metaphors weren't that funny, or the debate. The funniest thing of the segment to me was like the categories that came up was like occupations, but like the graphic was the village people. Or like world leaders, and it was like Kim Jong-il, Gandhi, and Oprah, and like the just those little jokes like that. And I feel like some of that was lost towards the end. The storylines were lost towards the end, with maybe the exception of the Amazon controversy.
That was a big one.
But even with his final show looming once it was announced, I didn't feel the need to kind of tune in and follow every night, and I kind of regret that, but I kind of feel like it made me feel the position I took in our debates when the news was announced, where I feel like he's getting out of this show specifically, this character, at around the right time. I think he ran his run with it. I think it sustained far longer than it should have, or that most people predicted. He made many references in the last week to people thinking he only had a few weeks in that character.
Mm-hmm.
He only had a month of shows ordered from Comedy Central to begin with, and he really took it as far as it could. But I think we did start hitting the point of slightly coasting on fumes, slightly diminishing returns. And that's not what I want to see. I want to see him in a new, even if it's a staid variety show format.
That's my fair. Let's get into that right now. So back, I think it was May. when they announced. It was very shortly after Letterman announced he was retiring, he was stepping down, and I want to say it was like a matter of days. Maybe I'm remembering that wrong. When they announced who would replace him, and then it was Stephen Colbert. And I remember in our little Facebook chat, I think maybe you announced it. I can't remember. Or like you were one of the first ones to talk about it, and you were very excited. Oh, this is so great! Oh, this is fantastic! And I had the opposite reaction, to say the least. I remember it was a big, not heated back and forth, because we don't get angry at each other. We're very friendly.
Well, we have, but not that time.
Not that time. I was not happy at all. I was very upset. For me, losing the character of Stephen Colbert, to me, is still a big loss. I'm not super happy, but I'm happy for him. I think it's a big thing for everyone on the show, because I think he's taken pretty much the entire crew and staff with him. So no one's losing their job. They're all going to the Late Show. It's great. I'm going to go Late Show hat. I like the Late Show. But I think it was Vulture article that talked about it. Like, it's great. It's good for him. But we're losing something. We're losing the character. You're not going to get the same thing. And I'm not a fan of typical late shows, I should say. To me, it just feels very formulaic. It's the standing up in front of a curtain, monologue joke, bit, guest, talking about some movie, pre-screened interview questions, maybe a bit, another guest, pre-screened interview questions, and throw to a musical guest, maybe a comedian. Same old, same old. Ferguson at least never used pre-screened interview questions, threw out notes, never did that. So at least it felt somewhat conversational. But
I don't think Colbert did either, actually, in a way. He had
Colbert's a whole different thing.
Well, Colbert had his own questions prepared.
Yeah.
But I don't think the guest was made aware of what those questions were.
No, I think I've read a lot, especially this week, talk about how he would talk to the guests in like the green room before and explain, my character is an idiot.
Yes.
Just go with it. You're gonna have to like fight to get your point across. Don't be afraid to. Like he always to soften it out of character, saying this is what my character is.
Mm-hmm.
For people who didn't know, obviously a lot more people knew towards the end. But like just the idea, like I just hate the idea of him going from Colbert Report, where you do things like Better Know a District, cheating death rates, Prescott Pharmaceuticals, this absurd corporation, and talking about from that slant of the conservative, where he means the opposite in a lot of what he's saying, to him introducing Coldplay's latest single and talking to Julia Roberts about some anecdote on a movie set. I'm just so not interested in that. I'm hoping he keeps things like his focus on writers and and like the stunts, like naming bridges and things like that. I really don't want him to just be another David Letterman, Jay Leno, Jimmy Fallon, Jimmy Kimmel type, where it's just the same kind of formulaic look. That was my big concern.
I guess the way I look at it is that, yes, we're losing, or we have lost Stephen Colbert, the character, but in a way, to me, it felt like we had already, for the most part, lost him.
Dark.
That sounds really harsh, and I admire Stephen Colbert so much as a performer, as a writer, as a comedy god at this point, but I did binge those last 2 months of shows, and I felt like it was a little bit of going through the motions a little bit, and if the Colbert character isn't essential anymore, then I don't know if it's necessarily worth keeping him around. Like I think I use this metaphor multiple times for any time I see something going downhill, but it's like Office season 5 territory of like, it's good, but
yeah.
I'm starting to feel like it might go to a bad place soon, and then it did, and I'm not sure if I should still be watching.
I don't think I ever really stopped Colbert. If I didn't watch it, it was because I wasn't in town, or my PVR didn't pick it up for whatever reason, or at the very least, I watched everything up until the guest. Sometimes if I was pressed for time, I got a lot of things to watch and I didn't know or really care about the guest, I would skip the guest interview. If it was someone I really liked, or if it was someone I expected funny things from, or I heard the next day, oh, this is a great interview, then I would watch it. But more often than not, both for Colbert and Daily Show, I rarely would watch the guest, unless it was someone I really liked, or like I said, I heard great things about. So for me, it was like less than 50 minutes to watch an episode, and I got, for me, the best stuff. So I don't think I ever really fell off the show. I think I pretty much consistently watch it as much as I could.
I think that basically Stephen Colbert is so smart that he made a Bill O'Reilly parody last 9
9
years.
years, and that's incredible.
That he can use those smarts to make a late night talk show that is at least as entertaining and essential as Fallon's is in terms of
in a different
not
way.
necessarily nightly watching. And I understand that you were still at that point of nightly watching, but still relevant, still making that format relevant. I think Colbert can easily do that.
If anyone can, honestly, Stephen Colbert can do it. So I'm less worried than I would be about anyone else taking over for David Letterman. Anyone can do it. It's absolutely going to be Stephen Colbert. And I just hope they really just break down the format of what the Late Show is and just kind of reinvent it almost from the ground up. I mean, they're not going to obviously keep much of recurring bits or elements from Colbert Report because it's a different show. He's not his character anymore.
There is the possibility, considering it's the same corporate owner of Viacom, that there's not going to be a Conan NBC to TBS situation where he needs legal permission to
air clips and stuff
feature
like
anything.
Yeah, and like the stuff, little things like one of my favorite things is Jay the Intern. Jay the Intern's been the intern, I think, most of the show. Probably the most recurring character you ever see on camera, other than Steven, I think.
I think things like that don't depend specifically on his character. Like you mentioned before that you're hoping for something along the lines of The Bridge. I don't think calling on the Colbert Nation to do his bidding is necessarily something that will translate to a regular talk show. In part because you could argue that CBS wouldn't be interested in that at 11:30, and they're going to put some shackles on him like they did Conan O'Brien. But in part because I think Colbert is a little bit past it now. I think he's ready for something else.
But I think that also part of that is the Comedy Central. What was it? I'm thinking of the underdog, scrappy. We're a little show. Let's see what we can do with our little show audience and all that. Which you wouldn't get tonally from a big network show. Doesn't really work where you rally the nation on a big network show. That doesn't. It's not the same as when you got that little cable show that's on 11:30 or 12:30, depending where you're watching it. Network kind of, it's a different vibe, so I can see them not doing that sort of thing. But I'm also gonna really miss that sort of thing.
There also will maybe not necessarily be a segment where after the previous night declaring he had won the lottery, he then realizes he has not won the lottery, and he has to call back Sumner Redstone with an apology for insulting him, going on a bunch of nothing at all. Like I own you, old man. Now. This is on the DVD.
What was the segment that he did? Was it Yom Kippur? He does it.
Atone phone.
The Atone phone. Stuff like that.
Every Jewish holiday. Usually Yom Kippur. Every Jewish holiday.
Yeah. I'm gonna miss stuff like that. I'm curious.
That ringtone.
I don't expect him to be like every other late talk show where it's it's the standing in front of a curtain joke, bit, guest, bit, joke, whatever. I think he's gonna do something different. I really hope he is. I'm expecting it just because it's him, but we'll see. Not going, we'll see. I'm hoping for it.
Yeah.
So when we dive into like the last week or the last show, is there anything in the last week?
Yeah, I was about to suggest that. What were your thoughts on the very last week and episode?
The last week, I mean, it felt pretty much not by the numbers, but ordinary shows. They talk about how it's like the show is ending. He's done that for a little while. The one that really hit me, and I think we talked about it before, was the second last show where he had a yard sale for props from the show. Just open up the back lot there, open up the garage, put up like handwritten notices around the block, couple blocks, and just random people, mostly older people I noticed, just little yard sales, would walk in, and he was selling actual props, like copies of his correspondence speech. The Colbert.
Wasn't that what the baby dropped?
Yeah, the baby dropped it while she's talking to camera.
A piece of history.
Piece of history for $1, and he's like, people are nickel and dime saying 50 cents. Okay, and he's wearing an American flag toque. He's got his sweatpants on. He's got a little winter jacket on. He's selling these things himself, and just anyone can walk out the street and buy these to what a lot of people would be massive things that would probably pay hundreds of dollars for on like an online charity bid thing, and he's just selling them to random people, and he's counting his money at the end. It was just such a perfect note for this show.
I think Matt rightfully pointed out that that was probably, at least whether it was intended to be or just in the back of Steven's mind or people's mind, uh, that was probably a test for what kind of remote can they shoot
Yeah.
for his new talk show.
I
The
would love
Conan
that.
O'Brien interacting with people,
Yeah.
because that's what Colbert. I mean, actually, well, Colbert is equally genius whether he's just monologuing or he's interacting with guests and improvising with people. Like so, the
Yeah.
idea of Colbert interacting with normal people, having fun with them, is something exciting to me. But that was a great
Yeah.
great
I
segment.
think that was a perfect like second last show segment about this is how you
Yeah.
wrap it up. Good for him.
Speaking
And
of the, you might be about to say this. I was shocked that the final episode began with basically a normal Colbert take on a news story. What was it specifically?
oh god, what was it?
Something about truckers, ice.
Yeah, it was like a truck showed up in like Saudi Arabia, like it was from like a plumber. It was like
Oh, I don't know where I got
plumber
iced from then, but that is correct. Yeah, a Texas.
Yeah, the
a
Texas
plumbing
plumber,
truck.
and like the phone number was clearly visible, so people would angrily call him, and like he didn't know, like he sold it and didn't know how it got there, and they played his new outgoing message, which was the effect of, hey, if you need help fixing your toilet, leave me a message. If you need help killing insurgents based on your warped interpretation of the Quran,
Similar
I can't help you.
similar to the answering machine gags of the late night call gags with Wilford Brimley.
Yes, exactly. Oh, Wilford Brimley. So yeah, it was like an ordinary Colbert story, and then he gets into he mentions the raffle for the desk and the painting fireplace, and he mentioned that, and I noticed it was they hoped to raise $250,000 and raise $313,000 for
The
donors.
nation's
to
always
choose, and
always been good at fundraising.
I love that about them. I love it about us, I should say. I've given some money to Colbert in the past.
He doesn't
then-
consider us part of it. We're Canadians.
It's true. And then he gets into one of my favorite things he's done over the last couple months was, if this is your first show, I have some terrible news for you.
That was so well delivered.
And it was a perfect one for the final show. This is the last one. And then he talks a little bit about, he brings back the word for one last time, of course he had to, where he talks about the circular nature of the show and how he brought it all back to where it started from, where there's a Bush going to be running for president maybe. Both in 2005 and 2014, he had to look up who won the NBA championship. But then he mentioned little things like Stephen Colbert the Eagle, and I think the Olympics he brought up, and like the bridge, the space arm, something, the little things, huge things he's accomplished over the years, while still, staying in character and saying he brought up everything back the same, and that's how it should be. And then we get into his final shout-out, which is it's such a stupid little thing, but I fucking love the shout-out so much. Every time in the real world someone mentions a shout-out for something, I either say it or mutter to myself, hey.
I was looking up Colbert articles on AV Club. They had a best television of 2006, and the person who wrote about Colbert specifically mentioned, does that shout-out graphic ever not get funny? And I'm like, no, it doesn't. I'll tell you that from 8 years in the future.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, it's perfect delivery. He gets into one last segment, Cheating Death, with Dr. Stephen Colbert, DFA, and goes to that typical graphic where he's playing chess with death, with Grimmy, and he cheats. But this time, the Grim Reaper catches him, throttles him, Stephen pulls out a gun, and shoots and kills Death, and then became immortal, which I think there was theories going around that the Colbert character would get killed off in the finale, and they went the opposite direction.
The Grim Reaper, who was listed as Grimmy, was listed as the final guest, had shown up. He didn't actually do it in the last 2 months, but around September and when they. Because there was a little period in there between Stephen Colbert being named as Dave Letterman's successor and when Stephen Colbert, the character, announced the end of the show. But anytime the end of the show was talked about, Grimmy would show up and make very obvious references to Colbert dying, and Colbert would not get it.
So yeah, he kills Death, becomes immortal, which is just so great. And then it comes back, and he goes over his bucket list.
He's just sitting on his desk, and just like, what do I do now?
Yeah, he's going over his bucket list, which contain mostly food items that he wants to eat from buckets. And then he breaks, and I heard about it before I watched it. I didn't watch it until the next morning. I heard there was like a big song or a song number, so I was kind of expecting it, but
Big song numbers,
yeah,
underselling.
yeah, to the least. It's hearing the piano playing. He starts singing, and of course, Jon Stewart comes out, and you see it's Randy Newman playing on piano, and then you can hear the audience just going insane. And you're like, okay, who's here? Who's here? And I'm not going to go over the whole list. It's a ridiculous number of people that show up in studio for this big song. What were the ones that jumped out to you as your favorites that you love seeing there?
That I love seeing there. It was mostly people who I assume were invited because of their past with the show. Like a lot of them were like clearly just like favorite celebrity guests.
Mm-hmm.
Like Bryan Cranston has shown up in like random things, mainly that rollerblading to the Daft Punk moment. Oh, Daft Punk! Let's say Daft Punk is one of my favorite
oh God
things of all time. When Daft Punk
too.
dropped out on him.
Yeah.
But like Henry Kissinger, who was who was the man that was called on to announce each round of the Guitarmageddon.
Neil deGrasse Tyson, Big Bird, Michael Stipe,
Big
Patrick
Bird
Stewart,
Cookie Monster, who had shown up for little bits. Yeah, Michael
Elliot,
Stipe, who had been around on the shelf forever.
Mike Huckabee, George Lucas, J.J. Abrams video.
George Lucas, who was the second place in the green screen challenge. George L. Very upset.
Tom Brokaw, Mark Cuban, Ariana Huffington.
Mm-hmm.
So many great ones. And then there's like towards the end, his kids and his wife are there. Imagine various executives from Comedy Central and from Viacom are there. It just like
Franco,
the studio's filled.
Franco not seeming, I don't know, seeming a little half out of it. I'm not sure why.
Oh,
maybe stuff is going on in his life.
Ernesto Colberto, troops in Afghanistan, 2 members of Pussy Riot are there. It was just getting more and more ridiculously amazing, seeing like groups and groups and groups. And then it cuts to the little a fade out, and you go to the empty studio, get a little tour of the studio, one last look, and you go outside up to the roof, where Colbert decides, what am I going to do now? And who shows up but a few immortals, Santa Claus, Abraham Lincoln, and the man with all the answers, Alex Trebek. And Alex Trebek asks Stephen what's he going to do, or Stephen asks, what am I going to do now? And Rob breaks out his, which referred to him as a Stephen Colbert prop.
Yeah, I couldn't hear you because I didn't have the headphones in, but I assume you noticed my not at all obtrusive shield that is taking most of the camera right now.
Fantastic.
Anyway.
Yeah, so Stephen and Alex Trebek, we get one more dig against Canada, where Alex defensively says, I have dual citizenship. Yeah, that doesn't really count. And they all go off together. It's sweet. And then probably my favorite moment, up there with the singers, but my favorite moment is Alex Trebek wakes up Stephen, who is falling asleep on his shoulder. And Stephen says a very nice goodbye and a thank you to everyone who's watched, who's supported the show over the years. Very genuine, very sweet. And then my favorite thing, he says, good night, back to you, John. And we cut to John Stewart, who says, thanks for the report, Stephen. Here's your moment of zen. And it was that Newhart moment, which I don't know if you know that reference.
Yes, I do.
Being born in
Craig Ferguson also ended last night. He ended on another Newhart parody. What
was his?
His was Mr. Wick from the Drew Carey Show wakes up in bed with Drew Carey.
That's great.
Yeah. Also combined with the St. Elsewhere snow, it then panned over to the St. Elsewhere snow globe.
Nice.
As "Don't Stop Believing" played until it cut out.
Oh, that's nice. Yeah, the throw to John the whole thing was one big segment for the Daily Show. I thought was a brilliant idea. It was a perfect little ending. Did you notice the song for the end credits? That wasn't the usual end credit song. Did you read it?
Yes, I assume you know the kind of relevance of it.
It was. Let me just pull it up here. I played it earlier myself. Holland 1945
Mhm.
was the song, and it has special meaning for him. His father,
Well, unofficially,
unofficially.
there's an article that kind of
Yeah.
deduces what it might mean.
Well, the lyrics, let me just get to the good part here. And here's where your mother sleeps, and here's the room where your brothers were born, indentions in the sheets, where their bodies once moved but don't move anymore. Stephen's father and two of his brothers, apparently two of his closest siblings, had died in a plane crash, and the speculation is that song, the lyrics had special meaning for him, which I think is just a really, really sweet touch.
Yeah, and apparently, and I am not familiar enough with the Neutral Milk Hotel to actually confirm myself, but apparently it was a favorite to play during commercial breaks of the show
Oh,
when at
that's
the
nice.
tapings, because they would blast music to keep people's energy up.
Yeah.
Um,
Nice touch.
I mean that's kind of a sad note for us to end
Yeah,
a
it
very
went from that very
celebratory
hopeful
thing.
"We'll Meet Again" sing along
Yeah,
to that song, but I mean, you don't. It's not a somber like the beat of the song isn't like super down. So if you
I
don't really
mean
know the lyrics,
I guess I'd sum it up as I mean I bawled like a baby,
yeah,
like a
I did
baby.
on a rewatch. I
I
rewatched it
don't
before we talked, and I
I
cried again.
can't rewatch it. I'm not ready for it. And I think his family would be, or I mean, his family that are still with the
Hmm.
world are obviously very proud of him, and I'm sure that his entire family would be extremely proud of him. And I think something that we haven't quite been able to articulate because it's hard to is just how much of an influence he had, not just like sense of humor, which I
Hmm.
think was big for a certain generation of lefty commies like me, and how to deal with the world, but his kind of like can do anything attitude. I think Jimmy Fallon is not. I have brought him up like 3 times now by with
Fanboy.
no hidden agenda, but just I feel like Jimmy Fallon's hook of being able to get celebrities to play along with stuff was really opened. The door was opened by Stephen Colbert in terms of
Yeah.
late night format. Change, like it's so hard to get across.
No, I get what you're saying.
Uh,
To me, to like that and like the ability to get people to play along, or even when they're not knowing they're playing along, like the
mhm.
unwilling participant in many of the jokes, but also people really got into it and played with him. Like his, like there's a great article about just some of the guests that really gave it back to Steven in fun ways, like people like Joan Rivers and even like James Franco, who challenged him not once but twice to Tolkien trivia and got trounced by Stephen
Yeah.
Colbert both times. Just the fun little things like that, and like we talked about earlier, the audience participation factor in it, the Colbert Nation, like getting things, multiple things, in often foreign countries named after him, and things like sponsoring that junior hockey team and the Olympic team. Massive things. They had impact on the real world. It wasn't just a little TV show on cable anymore.
And these are all just like little things that kind of add up to his influence, but it's hard to kind of state. I think in part because of the reason this podcast was created was the idea of capture our thoughts in the
The
moment
moment, exactly.
without being able to look back with 2020 hindsight or history or
Yeah.
see what developments come out of it. But even still, we have 9 years of show to reflect
Yeah,
on it.
so many shows, so many jokes, so many segments, recurring characters that we didn't talk about his books. I mean, his books. I've got his books on audiobook. It's just I love hearing him read out "I'm American, So Can You," things like that. It just I just found I remembered earlier. And I think I talked about it when we first talked about it. I don't remember what year it was. I want to say it was 2007, 2008. I went as Stephen Colbert for Halloween, which consists of just a dark suit, black wig, glasses, an American flag lapel pin, and cue cards. Colbert Report cue
Oh,
cards.
nice.
We wrote down little anecdotes like things like merchandise, the Stephen Colbert's Alpha Squad 7, Lady Nocturne, Tech Jansen Adventure, um, Stephen Colbert's Formula 401, Stephen Colbert's Hip Hop Kitball, a Jazzabration.
Oh my God!
Remember
And
that?
that's why Kareem Abdul-Jabbar was there in the finale. I was like, he's part of a joke that I can't remember.
Characters, body of the stage manner. Charlene got a shout out in the finale.
Yep.
Stephen the Colbert's, Black Alan, his friend. What else was? Oh, some of the opening tags. Put some pants on, America. The truth is at the door. Put your keys in the bowl. It's time for a swinging truth party. Get ready to make a difference by watching TV. From the makers of The Colbert Report.
That's also on the top of his book. It says, from the author of I Am America, So Can You.
So yeah, I mean, I went as him for Halloween years ago. I mean, cue cards. It's incredible. I mean, he had a huge impact. He will continue to. I mean, he's not going away. The character is Colbert is not. I don't think his influence is going away. I'm interested to see. As much as I have some reservations about it, just going to the Late Show, I kind of can't wait to see what he does with it at the same time.
Yeah.
So any final thoughts? What Colbert meant to you as a wee lad when it first started to the man you are now?
A little boy.
You're just a little boy?
I was sitting on my daddy's lap when that first arched eyebrow came out.
You were 15.
Colbert, I take classes at the Second City, probably because of Stephen Colbert. I have my politics have been shaped by Stephen Colbert. Yeah. My not necessarily comfort yet with performing is inspired by Stephen Colbert, but kind of he's the standard of which I think comedic performers set themselves. He lives at that standard or above. He has done so much more good for the world, both in terms of influence and making people entertained and real actual fundraising than, say, any of the people that his character is based off of.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
He just brought joy to this world, and it sounds like I'm eulogizing him, but I'm eulogizing the character in the show.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what this is. I mean, we're going to have Stephen Colbert hosting a new show in a few months. For me, I know it's only been 9 years. I'm not as young as you, so I've had a lot more years before Stephen Colbert came on the air. 2005, it was not yet 30. Yeah.
It feels even longer than. That's only one more year than either than a two-term presidency.
Yeah.
But it feels even longer than Bush was in office or Obama is going to be in office.
Yeah, like I've had all these years before he was on the show, and I cannot imagine what's going to be like not to have the Colbert Report on most nights of the year. Like there's obviously weeks off here and there, but I always, when something big broke, like, you know, a country was invaded, or, you know, a big banking scandal or some celebrity scandal.
What's his take?
What's his take gonna be? I can't wait to find out. Because
his ability in terms of, it was always down to his improvisational ability. He could adapt to he could adapt to a new president. I remember so many articles like, what will Stephen Colbert and Jon Stewart do now that George W. Bush is gone? Well, he has a Democrat to rail against, and also Daily Show more so in the ensuing years, but also Colbert just start reacting to the reactionary news instead of just take it. But he could react to any silly thing thrown at him, any serious thing thrown at him.
Yeah. When you actually get out of a guest that you just don't see on any other talk show, just like the silliness with them, but with the pretense of it being serious.
Well, I don't know if you know, but prostitutes and cocaine are a fun thing to do.
I'm gonna miss Stephen Colbert, the character. I've got a bunch of episodes saved. Got his books. There's the DVDs, so we can always revisit. And we're gonna get see Stephen Colbert do something, I think, hopefully, equally good. If not, maybe better. We'll see.
I don't know what to say anymore.
That's perfect ending. We can end on that.
I'm just sad. So I'm sad, but also thankful. So
yeah, I think we can end on that. That's good.
All right. I guess goodbye.
Goodbye, and we'll have another one of these pretty soon with a new topic. It'll be pretty exciting. And hopefully, well, we don't know about the exact schedule. Really, time capsules are going to be more about capturing something in the moment. Can't really predict when something is going to happen. So it will be kind of an erratic schedule, but I think kind of fun at the same time to do.
Yeah, I think it has to be bigger than, say, just like Avengers 2 is coming out
Yeah.
or something. But
I mean, I think off the top of my head, other than one we have planned for tomorrow to do, which we'll keep.
which I'm sure some people could probably guess based on
Yes.
the standard I have just set. But
Yes. The big one off the top of my head that I think we're going to do is the Parks and Rec finale. I mean, it's not as significant as the Colbert Report, but for us, being comedy nerds that we are, it's a pretty big deal. And I think that's at least that will be on the horizon. I'm sure there will be other things along the way, too.
I mean, especially if Universal gets hacked and has to pull the Parks and Rec finale.
That would be a prime target.
Yeah. Anyway.
Well, thank you, Rob, and thank you for anyone who watched this. I can't imagine anyone knew we didn't advertise it, but for anyone who listens to it at the end, if there's anything you think should be covered, let us know, and maybe we'll talk about it. Thank you, Rob. Bye-bye.
Bye, Brian.